If you button a men's dress shirt today, you're actually interacting with this like 500-year-old defense mechanism.
No, the sword thing. Yeah.
Right, because the left side of the shirt with the buttonholes sits on top of the right side with the buttons. We do this right over left motion without even thinking about it. But historically, men carried swords on their left hips.
Right, to draw across the body with the right hand.
Exactly. So buttoning the shirt left over right ensured that when a man drew his sword, the hilt of the weapon wouldn't catch on the flap of his shirt and, get him killed.
It is just a phenomenal reminder that the clothes we wear aren't just fabric stitched together. They are living history.
Yeah.
And, well, in the case of women's shirts, which usually button the opposite way, left over right, that goes back to the Renaissance era.
I always wondered about that.
Yeah, wealthy women were often dressed by right-handed servants facing them, so the buttons were reversed to make the servant's job easier. The factories just kept repeating these centuries-old design choices when mass production started.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if you are listening to this deep dive right now, maybe you are stepping into a new professional environment. Or perhaps you're re-entering the workforce after a career change or some time away.
And it can be overwhelming.
Totally. Looking at a rack of professional clothing can feel incredibly intimidating. It feels like everyone else was handed a secret rule book that you never got to read.
Oh, absolutely.
But style rules aren't a secret club designed to keep people out. They are just tools. And today, our mission is to hand you the absolute most important tool in that box, which is the dress shirt.
It really is the workhorse of professional dress.
Yeah.
I mean, for anyone trying to build a wardrobe on a budget, this is the cheapest, highest impact upgrade you can possibly make.
Because it's so close to the face.
Well, yes, but also just generally. You can take a very modest, affordable suit or even just a pair of basic trousers, and if you pair them with a crisp, well-fitted, high-quality dress shirt, the entire look is instantly elevated. It communicates that you pay attention to the details.
Right. But to understand the shirt, we can't just talk about it as a single piece of fabric. We have to break it down. And the most logical place to start is the part of the shirt that people actually see the most. The part right next to your face.
The collar.
Yeah.
Because when you are speaking with someone in an interview or a meeting, they are looking at your face. The collar sits right under your chin, acting as the visual anchor of your entire outfit. It is quite literally the frame around your face.
And if you think about, like, putting a beautiful photograph in a frame that is crooked or the wrong shape, it distorts how you view the art itself.
Exactly.
So if we want to get the frame right, what exactly are we looking at? Like, if I'm holding a shirt in a store right now, what are the different parts of that collar doing?
So there are three main structural components you need to know. First, you have the points, which are simply the sharp tips of the collar that point downward.
Okay.
Second is the spread, which is the distance or the gap between those 2 points. And finally, there is the stand. Yeah, the stand is that rigid band of fabric that wraps all the way around your neck. It's what actually gives the collar its height and supports the points so they don't just, collapse flat against your collarbone.
So the stand is almost like the foundation of a house.
That's a great way to put it.
But even with a good stand, sometimes collars feel incredibly stiff, almost like cardboard, and other times they feel very soft. What is happening inside the fabric to cause that?
Ah, that comes down to the hidden architecture. Specifically, something called interlining.
Interlined.
Right, it's an extra layer of structural material sewn inside the collar. Now, this can be what we call fused, meaning it's literally glued with heat to the outer fabric.
Wait, glued.
Yeah, literally melted glue.
Mm-hmm.
Or it can be floating, meaning it's loosely sewn inside. You might also find removable collar stays, which are those little plastic or metal bones you slide into the underside of the collar points to keep them dead straight.
Okay, I hear what you're saying about the different types of construction, but honestly, those stiff, fused collars just look so much sharper to me right off the hanger. Do I really have to sacrifice that crisp professional look and buy a softer floating collar just because some people say it's higher quality?
Well, what's fascinating here is that stiffer doesn't actually mean better quality. It's simply a trade-off.
How so?
A fused, glued collar does give you a very crisp, sharp look immediately, which is fantastic for a highly formal office. But over time, with repeated washing and dry cleaning, that glue can break down and cause the fabric to bubble and ripple.
Oh, I've seen that, where the
Yeah.
collar gets all bumpy.
Exactly. A floating sewn interlining is softer against your neck, more comfortable, and it actually ages much more gracefully because there is no glue to degrade. Both are entirely appropriate for the workplace, though. It just depends on whether you prioritize immediate rigid sharpness or long-term comfort and durability.
That makes a lot of sense. Now let's talk about how the geometry of that collar can actually be used as a tool. You mentioned earlier that the collar frames the face, but you can actually use the collar to flatter your specific face shape through a bit of an optical illusion.
Yes, it's all about creating visual balance. Let's say you have a rounder or wider face. You want to choose a point collar.
So a narrow gap.
Right. This is a collar where the spread, that gap between the points, is very narrow. Because those points are aiming straight down, it draws the viewer's eye vertically. It creates a vertical line that visually lengthens your face.
Right, and if I have a longer, narrower face, I want to do the exact opposite. I want to draw the viewer's eye outward to create some width.
Exactly.
So I would look for a spread collar, which you sometimes hear called a Windsor collar, right? That wide gap between the points creates a strong horizontal line, which visually balances out a long face.
That is exactly how the geometry works. And if you aren't sure what your face shape is, or if you just want a reliable workhorse that looks good on practically everyone, you go with a semi-spread collar.
The middle ground.
Yeah, it is the versatile middle ground. Not too narrow, not too wide. It flatters almost every face shape and works in almost every single professional environment.
But there is a catch here if you are wearing a tie. You can't just pick a collar and then tie whatever knot you want. The geometry has to match.
Yes, the collar and the tie knot have to speak the same language. A widespread collar leaves a massive amount of empty space at your neck, so it demands a large, bulky knot, like a full Windsor, to fill that gap.
Otherwise, it looks weird.
It looks physically out of balance, like a tiny picture hanging alone on a massive blank wall. Conversely, a narrow point collar leaves very little room, so you have to use a slim, simple knot like a four-in-hand, or the collar points won't sit flat.
Okay, so we've got the shapes and the geometry down, but we really need to address a massive point of confusion because this traps a lot of first-time professionals when they go shopping. We need to talk about the button-down collar.
Ah, the great myth of the button-down.
Hmm.
This is probably the single most misunderstood element of menswear.
It is, because people constantly hear the phrase, a button-down corporate environment. It gets used in movies and articles to describe something stiff, serious, and highly traditional.
Right.
So naturally, when someone goes to buy a shirt for a high-stakes interview, they assume that a button-down collar, where the points of the collar are physically fastened to the shirt body with two tiny buttons, is the most formal shirt they can own.
Which is entirely backwards. The button-down collar is structurally the most casual collar style you can wear.
How did that happen? Why do we associate those little buttons with corporate America if they are actually casual?
We have to look at the origins. The button-down collar wasn't invented in a boardroom. It was invented purely as sportswear.
Wait, really?
Yeah. In the late 19th century, polo players were getting incredibly frustrated because the wind would blow their collars up into their faces while they were riding horses at high speed.
Oh, that makes sense.
So a man named John Brooks of Brooks Brothers noticed they had started pinning their collars down to their shirts. He brought that idea back to America in 1896, added buttons, and marketed it.
So it is literally athletic gear. Wearing a button-down collar with a highly formal suit or a tuxedo is the equivalent of wearing high-end running shoes with a tailored suit. They might be very nice running shoes, but they are fundamentally the wrong tool for the job.
Exactly. Because of those sportswear roots, traditional style rules view the button-down as inherently casual. It is a fantastic option for a smart casual office or wearing with a blazer and no tie on a Friday. But it is entirely out of place for a formal courtroom appearance, a serious job interview, or any highly formal event.
Let's make this highly practical for the listener. If someone listening has a life-changing job interview tomorrow morning and they want to communicate total respect for the opportunity, what collar should they be reaching for?
You reach for a semi-spread collar without buttons on the points. It is safe, it is respectful, and it is unequivocally professional. You save the button-down shirt for the weekend or casual Fridays.
All right, so we've established how to frame the face. But when you're wearing a suit jacket, there's only one other part of the shirt that is visible to the world, and that is the end of the sleeves.
The cuffs.
Yeah.
Just like the collar, the cuffs serve as communicators of formality. A cuff is simply the reinforced band of fabric at the wrist. And just above it, running a few inches up your forearm, is a slit called the sleeve placket.
And that usually has a tiny button on it, right?
Yes, the gauntlet button. It serves a very practical purpose. It keeps your forearm from flashing skin when you bend your arm or reach across a desk.
Now, when it comes to the cuffs themselves, you basically have two main options. And I know I used to think one was just the better, more expensive version of the other, but it really comes down to utility. You have the barrel cuff and the French cuff.
The barrel cuff, which is sometimes called a button cuff, is your everyday tool. It wraps around the wrist and fastens with one or two built-in buttons. It is perfectly appropriate for almost every single professional situation you will encounter.
And then there's the French cuff, also known as a double cuff. This is where the fabric of the cuff is twice as long, folded back over itself, and instead of having a button attached, it just has buttonholes on both sides.
Right, you need a cuff link.
Exactly. You have to pass a separate piece of jewelry through the holes to fasten it.
French cuffs are highly formal. If you're attending a formal wedding, a gala, or if you work at an extremely conservative, high-level financial institution, they add a beautiful touch of elegance.
But you really have to be careful with them, right? I remember early in my career wearing a French cuff shirt to a very standard mid-level staff meeting on a Tuesday morning, and I just felt completely ridiculous.
Like you were dressed for a wedding.
Yes, the metal cufflinks kept clacking against the desk every time I typed. It felt too flashy, like putting shiny aftermarket rims on a reliable daily commuter car. Fun, but maybe a bit flashy for a Tuesday morning.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, wearing French cuffs to a standard office environment can actually send the wrong message. It can look like you are trying too hard or that you don't understand the environment you're in. It's a bit like wearing a tuxedo to a casual lunch. It is always better to stick to the barrel cuff for the daily grind.
Speaking of the mechanics of the shirt, let's talk about the front of the shirt, where all those buttons run down from the collar to the hem. That vertical strip of fabric holding the buttons is called the placket.
Right.
I noticed some shirts have a very visible, folded, stitched strip of fabric there, and some shirts are just completely flat and smooth. Is one considered more professional?
That mostly comes down to a style choice, but texture does affect formality. That visible raised band of fabric with stitching down both sides is called a standard or American placket. It's highly durable and classic.
And the flat one?
A shirt without that folded strip where the fabric just folds under, cleanly leaving a flat front, is called a French placket. Because it has fewer visible seams and less texture, it offers a slightly cleaner, dressier finish. But neither is wrong for a professional environment. A standard placket is perfectly acceptable anywhere.
Okay, so we've covered the collar framing the face and the cuffs finishing the arms. But what happens when the jacket comes off? Because how the actual body of the shirt sits on you determines whether you look put together or whether you look disheveled.
Oh, this brings us to the great anxiety of modern menswear, the tucking debate. When do you tuck a shirt in and when do you leave it out?
People agonize over this, but the garment actually tells you what to do. The rule is simply, let the hem decide.
Yes. The bottom edge of the shirt, the hemline, is engineered for a specific purpose. Dress shirts has long, curved tails. They are noticeably longer in the front and the back, and they curve up high at the hips.
Right.
This is an intentional engineering choice. Those long tails exist specifically to stay anchored securely inside your trousers when you sit down, reach up, or bend over.
Wearing a dress shirt untucked is like wearing a tool belt backwards. It's just not being used as designed. Those long tails hanging down in the front and back look incredibly sloppy, almost like you're wearing a nightgown.
Casual shirts, on the other hand, have a straight, flat, much shorter hem all the way around. They are explicitly meant to be worn untucked. You'll also notice casual shirts usually feature chest pockets, whereas traditional, formal dress shirts lack chest pockets entirely to maintain a clean, flat profile under a suit jacket.
Okay, but here is a real-world struggle that a lot of people face. Let's say I follow the rule. I tuck my dress shirt in, I look great in the mirror, but 10 minutes later, I reach for a file, I sit down at my desk, and suddenly I have this massive ring of fabric billowing out over my belt.
Ah, the parachute effect.
Yes, it looks like a muffin top of cotton. I feel terrible, and it looks messy. What is going wrong?
That billowing effect means the fit of the shirt body is wrong for you.
Yeah.
Many people, especially those just starting to build a wardrobe, buy shirts that are vastly too large in the chest and waist. You want to look for shirts labeled fitted, slim, or tailored cut, even if you have an average or larger build.
You don't want it tight, though.
No, you just want the fabric to sit relatively close to your torso without pulling tightly at the buttons.
But sometimes people buy a larger shirt body just because they have a thicker neck, right? They size up just so they can breathe when the collar is buttoned.
Yes, and that is exactly what creates the parachute effect. First, you should be able to slide 2 fingers comfortably between your neck and the button collar. That's the 2-finger rule for a proper fit.
Right.
But if you have to buy a shirt 3 sizes too big in the body just to get the collar to fit your neck, you need to stop buying generic small, medium, or large sizes. You need to look for shirts sold by specific neck and sleeve measurements, like a 16-inch neck with a 34-inch sleeve, for example. That allows you to get a neck that fits without drowning your torso in extra fabric.
That is incredibly helpful. Now, while we are talking about the torso, we have to tackle the undershirt question. To wear one or not to wear one?
It is entirely optional. There's no strict professional law that dictates you must wear an undershirt. It comes down to analyzing the pros and cons for your specific body and climate.
And what are the pros?
Well, they're significant. An undershirt absorbs sweat, which protects the collar and armpits of your good dress shirt from stains, extending its life. Furthermore, if you are wearing a thin white dress shirt, an undershirt prevents your skin tone or body hair from showing through the fabric.
But the cons are that you are adding an entire extra layer of fabric, which can make you uncomfortably hot in the summer. And it can add unnecessary bulk under a tailored shirt.
Exactly. But if you do choose to wear one, there is a golden rule that must not be broken. The undershirt should be completely invisible to the outside world.
Nothing ruins a sharp, confident, open collar look faster than the stark white ring of a crewneck t-shirt peeking out right at the throat. It immediately makes the outfit look like an afterthought.
Oh, completely. If you are going to wear your dress shirt collar open, without a tie, you must wear a V-neck undershirt so the neckline drops down and stays hidden below the open collar of your dress shirt. And if you are wearing a white dress shirt, a plain white or a light heather gray undershirt will usually disappear perfectly beneath it.
All right, we've learned the mechanics. We know the geometry of the collar, the utility of the cuffs, the engineering of the hem, and the necessity of a good fit. Now it is time to actually build the wardrobe. If someone listening is starting from scratch, walking into a store today with a limited budget, what is the game plan?
You need a direct, actionable strategy so you don't waste your money on shirts you'll rarely wear. And that starts with understanding fabrics. When you are looking at the rack, focus on 2 main weaves, poplin, which is sometimes called broadcloth, and Oxford cloth.
Why does the weave matter so much?
It dictates the formality. Poplin or broadcloth is a very tightly woven plain weave fabric. It is incredibly smooth, crisp, and has practically no visible texture.
And that makes it formal.
Yes. Because it is smooth and flat, it is considered highly formal. It slides beautifully under a suit jacket without catching. Oxford cloth, however, is a basket weave. You can actually see the little crisscross pattern of the thicker threads.
And because you can see that texture, it naturally looks a bit rougher, which makes it more casual. That's the fabric most of those button-down collars are made from, right?
Exactly. Texture reduces formality. So for your core professional wardrobe, especially if you're interviewing or working in a traditional office, you want to focus entirely on smooth poplin or broadcloth. Now, for your color strategy, you want to build strictly on a foundation of white and light blue.
Just white and light blue. That feels a bit restrictive if you're looking at a wall of colors.
It is restrictive by design. You are building a foundation, not a novelty collection. White is the absolute most formal color a man can wear during the day. It's the ultimate armor. If you're walking into a courtroom, a major salary negotiation, or a high-stakes job interview, a crisp white shirt projects authority, cleanliness, and total respect for the environment.
And light blue.
Light blue is slightly less formal than white, making it the absolute perfect, reliable, everyday professional color.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I always compare building a wardrobe to culinary basics. White and light blue shirts are the salt and pepper of your closet. You don't start learning how to cook by buying exotic, expensive spices. You buy salt and pepper first because they go in absolutely everything.
That's a great analogy.
Right. You can wear a white or light blue shirt with a navy suit, a charcoal suit, a gray suit, or just a basic pair of khaki trousers, and they will never, ever clash.
That is exactly right. So here is the winning formula, the golden rule for starting out. Buy 2 white shirts and 2 light blue shirts. Look for a semi-spread collar, a barrel cuff, and a smooth poplin fabric. If you have those 4 shirts in your closet, you are covered for almost every important occasion a professional will ever face. You are fully ready for interviews, court dates, daily office work, weddings, and funerals.
But what about patterns? I see people wearing striped or checked shirts in offices all the time. Are those completely off limits for a beginner?
They aren't off limits, but you have to understand the scale of formality. The rule of thumb for patterns is the larger and bolder the pattern, the more casual the shirt becomes. Fine, thin stripes, like a pencil stripe that looks solid from a distance, are perfectly fine for standard business wear.
But bolder stuff.
Bolder, wider stripes, or large checks like a gingham pattern are distinctly casual. They belong in a smart, casual office, not sitting across from a hiring manager or a judge. Build your bulletproof foundation of solids first. Once you have your salt and pepper, then you can start adding patterns.
This is so incredibly empowering. To everyone listening, navigating a new career path, or stepping into an office for the first time, we want to remind you that you absolutely belong in these professional spaces. The dress shirt is a low-cost, high-leverage tool. You do not need to spend thousands of dollars on custom suits to look like a seasoned professional.
You truly don't. By knowing how to frame your face with the correct collar geometry, by choosing reliable barrel cuffs instead of flashy French cuffs, by letting the curved hem dictate that you tuck it in, and by sticking to that impenetrable foundation of white and blue poplin, you are fully equipped. You have the knowledge to walk into any room and command respect. This raises an important question, though, as we look to the future of professional environments. We are currently seeing a massive shift in workplace dress codes. Neckties are slowly disappearing from many industries. Suits are routinely being replaced by a simple blazer or just trousers and a shirt.
Which means the dress shirt is no longer just a background canvas hiding behind a thick silk tie and wide jacket lapels. The dress shirt is becoming the main focal point of modern menswear.
Exactly. As the shirt stands alone, without a tie to hide behind, the collar becomes the centerpiece. How might the sheer quality, the hidden architecture of the interlining, and the perfect fit of that collar become the ultimate silent communicator of our professional competence in the future?
It is a profound shift. It means the details we discussed today are only going to become more vital.
Absolutely.
That is something to keep in mind the next time you are standing in front of the mirror before a big day. You aren't just putting on clothes. You are equipping yourself with a 500-year-old toolkit. Start with the collar, build your foundation, and step into the room like you already own it. Until next time, keep diving deep.